Hello there, it's Maggie, the Cheshire Crafter here. I've been away for a while. I had a holiday in Llandudno. I hope you've enjoyed watching those videos. And then on my return, we've had the news of the death of the Queen. And out of respect for the neighbours, I've tried to keep fairly quiet. So I haven't had my sewing machine working. And I've been busy myself. I went to my friend's birthday party. That was lovely. And spent some time recovering. So today it's time to get back to some sewing, back to the machine, and I'm going to complete the Christmas patchwork quilt that I began some weeks ago. So come with me and see how I do the quilting and the finishing of this Christmas patchwork quilt. So last time we left the patchwork quilt, I'd sewn the topper, the borders and the trimming on. And in this video, I'm going to be adding the wadding, quilting, and then finishing. If you remember, this is the Christmas rose. If you haven't seen that video, please go back and watch it. This was starting off with 10-inch, they were 10-inch fabric pieces of cotton. And I've used red cotton for the borders and for the contrast, and then I've used a white vintage cotton that I had for the white contrast, and I also used that white cotton in the border, and I'm going to finish it off on the back. So my backing is white vintage cotton, and I've cut that. I've left a good probably about 10 inches. I've got 5 inches each end at the header and footer, but I'm actually a bit tight on my width. I am restricted. This piece of my width now measures 41 by 58, and it means that, it doesn't look very wide, does it? But it means that when I push the trimming back, it means that I've got at least 2 inches in the width either side. I've got plenty of length, I'm not worried by that, but it's not this binding edge. This is going to be tucked under, remember, so it's a distance from this edge, this topper edge, and I've got a bit of wiggle room. It's 2 inches at least either side. Every time you quilt, it takes up more of that backing, it pulls it inwards. So I would recommend that you would cut at least 4 inches extra the size of your quilt at all edges. So 4 inches on top, 4 inches each side, and 4 inches at the bottom. And for my wadding, I haven't got 100% cotton because I know that shrinks. I've got this mixed, it's a polyester cotton mix. It's lovely and soft. It's actually quite fine. If I can find, I bought it off eBay and I bought 5 meters, and if I can find out the depth of it, I'll add it in here. So I'm going to place this now between the 2 layers that I've got, and I'm going to create a quilt sandwich. So I'm going to have my topper, then the wadding, and then the backing, and I'm going to make sure I pull them so that they are really flat. And then I'm going to pin them using the basting pins that I've used before. These pins are, can you see them? These pins have a curved edge, which means it'll go through fabric and come out the other side, and they're ideal for patchwork quilting. I'm going to do that, and then I'll show you what I've done when I've done it. Try and get some more of this because it's lovely. When I measured it, the width, it's approximately 52 inches width. So I've got, you can see underneath, I've just pinned it. These are the pins. These are the basting pins. I've just pinned it so it lies flat next to my backing, and you can see how much I've got left over. So this is cheap and cheerful. Be careful though that when you smooth it out, you use the back of your hand or the palm of your hand flat like that. Just smooth it from the middle outwards, and don't pull it tight, otherwise you'll put your fingers through it. And don't use your fingers to tug at it, because it will pull apart. So we want a thin layer. Remember, this is not a quilt. This is a lap blanket that I'm making. So I want it. I've already got quite thick cotton on the back. I've got a cotton front. I want a little extra filling. And I don't want it too heavy on somebody's lap while they're sitting. And I want it to be able to fold into those little places just so they can tuck it in, just to keep the drafts out. So this is ideal. What I've done is I've so far just pinned it to the backing while I smooth it out properly. Try and get some more of this because it's lovely. When I measured it, the width, it's approximately 52 inches width. So I've got, you can see underneath, I've just pinned it. These are the pins. These are the basting pins. I've just pinned it so it lies flat next to my the act of pinning will actually distort the fabric, so I always turn it over on the back, and you can see here where there's pulling here. That will show when I try and quilt that. So I'm going to adjust that and repin that from the other side now. So I've changed to a walking foot. And if you remember, I did this in blocks of 5 9-piece blocks across. And I'm going to look at the central block. And I'm going to sew from top to bottom on both sides. And I'm going to sew inside this border. This is my centre block. I'm going to sew from inside this border, just inside the seam. I'm not going to stitch in the ditch. I'm just going to sew one side of it. You can see there's a little bit of discrepancy there, and it'll show. I'm sewing in red in my bobbin, so my sewing is going to show very clearly on the back, but I'm going to do a track line just on the inside of this side of the line, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side here, on the other side here, and then I'm going to repeat that for each block, and I'm going to work each time from the centre outwards. I've got an excellent light. I've got the fabric rolled up to one side. I've got the weight supported on the equivalent of a table to one side, and I've got some folded up on my lap, and it feels really soft and comfortable. The other thing I'd say in this point is support your back. Don't forget just to support the fabric, support your back, because you're going to be doing this for quite some time. Feed the fabric through slowly. The walking foot will help the material feed through at the top at the same rate as the bottom, but take it slowly. Accuracy is more important than speed at this point. Do check the back of your work that the stitch is actually being picked up on the reverse. I did a test piece before I began this quilting, but do it before you go too far. On my first line of stitching, I kept having problems with the machine seizing and the needle falling out. And the reason was I hadn't tightened this. I'd tightened this screw so that it was finger tight, but it wasn't tight enough. And the needle kept falling out. So use your screwdriver to make sure that this screw is very tight, holding that needle in place, because it's also holding the walking foot, and the walking foot is having an impact on this screw. Every time you make a mistake, because I'm working in red, every little mistake is showing up on the reverse. So don't do what I do. Tighten that screw up with a screwdriver. Quilting is a bit like pancake making. The first pancake is always difficult, but it does get easier. And I think that I'm getting used to the feel of the walking foot on this fabric, and as it changes from the different cottons. This is a much thinner cotton than this one, so it's adjusting all the time, and we're getting used to each other. Myself, persevere. What I will say is, don't quilt when you're tired and hungry. Take a break. It's meant to be enjoyable. Come back when you're more rested, and you'll find you're not getting as irritable and you're not making so many mistakes. Learn from my mistakes. I'm still working from top to bottom, but I'm working from the middle out. So I've now completed, this is the second block, and I've completed the inner edge of that. I'm now going to the outer edge, and soon I'll be on the first block, and I'll complete it at that outer border here. Sorry, here, where's my finger? Here. When I've done that, I'm going to go back to the midline, and then work from the middle to the right, repeating the same thing. I'm going to... Some people wear gloves when they're quilting. I like to feel the fabric, and I can also feel the machine underneath here. It really helps me keep the work flat, but every now and again I'm checking on the back that I haven't puckered that white linen on the back, the fabric. So I'm now sewing across the width of this quilt, and I'm starting in the middle. This is a six block piece, so I'm starting between the third and the fourth, and again I'm going to work to the left and then to the right. I haven't removed any pins, and this is going to be easier because my stitch line is actually holding the fabric in place. I'm hoping this will be quicker and easier. Well, I'm finding quilting quite strenuous, but this isn't a marathon. I don't have to do it all in one go, so I'm going to stop now and return to it tomorrow. I'll just show you what it looks like on the reverse. If you do a coloured cotton on white, every mistake will show, and you'll see lots of threads at the moment. I need to finish those off on the reverse later, but I'm going to stop for now and come back tomorrow. Good night. My bobbin thread ran out in the middle of a row, and it happened to be on the white cotton. Now that's going to show up so much, so when I'm restarting and reconnecting and doing some overlapping, I'm doing it on the pattern print where the double stitching won't show quite so much. Of course it's going to show on the back, but it won't draw attention on the front on white. Next, to trim. I've turned my binding back on itself, and I've placed my ruler on that binding fold, and I'm going to cut 1/2 inch from there. That'll give me a good 1/2 inch for this binding to fold over and sew on the other side. I'm going to cut it with my rotary cutter. Well, this is the final quilt. This is the Christmas English Rose for a special young lady, and I hope she likes it. I've enjoyed making it. I wasn't sure whether the red thread was the right thing to do, but I shall see the pattern on the reverse now and the little message that I was able to introduce within it. I'm pleased I did make that decision. I hope she likes it, and I hope she'll use it for many years to come. Okay, bye for now. See you soon.